Hello, hello. Good morning, y'all. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Kayla. How are you?
Fabulous. It's actually a little bit warmer in here than I anticipated.
Yeah.
That's what happens in the South. Fall is a myriad of temperatures from 35 in the morning to 75 in the afternoon. So you have to be prepared.
Nice. You guys have similar weather to us then, because it's the same way. Although it got really cold last night. We had a storm that blew in over the weekend, and yeah, it was a bit chilly last night. So
Fun.
yeah,
Well,
but looking forward to our topic today, though. Should be awesome.
we have a lot planned for today. Taxes, which we could go on for hours and hours about, to be perfectly honest. But I know we've got some top hit items that we're going to hit today just to help take the edge off towards the end of the year, which is pretty cool, and give everybody
Yeah.
a little bit of information. So as we get going, you guys, if you're watching it live, drop live in the chat box. If you're watching it recorded, drop recorded. And we want to make sure we're getting this content out to you because this affects your bottom line, right? Like the ways that you make money, you make money, you bringing it in, and then you keep the money and you're not sending it back out.
Yeah. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. So yeah. Unfortunately, I have a lot of friends that make some pretty good money, but yeah, they spend a lot of it too. So.
I've been there. I think it was my second year in real estate. I was like, wow, I'm making so much money. And the end of the year, I was like, where's all my money?
Yeah.
What just happened?
I get it. I have a friend of mine that made pretty good money, and then he's like, "Man, my taxes are XYZ." I'm like, "Oh, did you get the S corp and LLC set up?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Dude, you gotta do that. Talk to your accountant and get it going." So
Yeah.
he just didn't realize how big the tax burden was going to be. But I remember that payment the first year I ever had to do my tax. I'm like, "What? I owe that much?" But my brokerage took X. She's like, "No, you still got to pay your taxes," and it's pretty much almost the same amount I was paying my brokerage at the time. So
it's pretty terrible. I don't know if anybody watching has ever gotten hit with like a massive tax bill, but I remember my first really high one, and I remember going, "Oh no, I need to do something about this. Like this is not good." And here's the kicker, you guys. I had a CPA. Like that was one of the first things that one of the best advice I got, get a CPA. And here's what they sent me. They sent me a piece of paper at the end of the year, which by the way, anytime I talked to my CPA, they would charge me like $600 just to ask a question like, hey, what do you think my taxes might be? And then they give me a piece of paper. Do you have a business phone? Do you have this? Do you have that? And I'm like, well, this is guiding me in the right direction, but I don't feel like it's really like getting me where I need to go. But okay, yeah, I've got this stuff. And I still owed I think I paid like $60,000 in taxes that year. And it was just like wrenched to the heart. I was like, really? All that hard work and I had to pay all that in taxes? It's insane. Yeah, not fun. Not fun.
It blows me away too. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay with paying my fair share of taxes. I mean, that's the rent we got to pay for living in this amazing country. But I definitely don't want to overpay or not take advantage of the stuff that the government's given us to take advantage of. So
I really want to bring that out and make a point of this. So the idea is not to. I mean, everybody would like to not pay taxes, right? I had a great tax year last year, is what I would call it. And it's not about we're trying to avoid or hide, right? What it is when you really look at it, we've been taught for so long that you pay what they tell you to pay. And the challenge is because most of us were W-2 employees. There really aren't any write-offs you can do. But as business owners, we spend thousands of dollars on our business in order to make money. Just like when you're buying your house, you get to write off your interest, right? Your interest payments are write-offs on your house. It's kind of the same idea. We are paying money to make money. And therefore, in the tax code, it gives us the ability, if you read it, to write that off. So a lot of times I'll see these people, individuals get mad, like Amazon and these big companies that quote unquote didn't pay taxes. And when you really look at it, they paid taxes in some sense. They paid, millions of dollars in payments with regards to shipping and handling and manufacturing, all the things that they're doing, especially employees. So it's not that people are cheating the system. They call it a loophole. And I know you've read this book too. I'm gonna do a shout out for a book, and we'll drop it in the chat box too. Phenomenal book you guys have got to get. Tax-Free Wealth by the Rich Dad Poor Dad Company. It's thick, but I will say we're all business owners. So going into that, it's like literally going the cheat codes to like save money. It's amazing. But one of the first things they explained was what a loophole is. Like we see it as something negative. It actually started in France. And a loophole is those teeny little windows that you see on castles. And it basically was like, so while the castle was being attacked from inside, the archers could go ahead and like snipe people from up top. It was called a loophole, right? So like it was built into the system to the advantage of those who knew how to use it, could use it, right? The people on the outside couldn't use it because that's not what it was built for. The tax code is built for us as business owners, and the government wants to reward those that are building the economy. So that's what we're diving into today. So before you guys are like, oh my God, they're going to teach me this illegal thing. All of this is in tax code. It's just a matter of knowing it and applying it.
And also like talk to your CPA before like taking any of our advice, because stuff changes and we're not always right. And the information we're giving you has been passed down from our accountants as well. And then mentors, because Kaila and I are both in high level masterminds as well. So a lot of those guys know stuff that even some accountants don't know, to be completely honest, or they're just not privy to. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of put that out there. It's funny. Somebody commented, "Oh, James, it's great. You know everything about real estate and taxes too." And I'm like, yeah.
Not necessarily. And that's it. It's a good
I'm just here to give some information on what I wish I would have known when I first started, and then what's helped me get to the spot where I'm at to kind of help me with taxes. And really what's helped me with taxes helped me with retirement, right? Because there's certain retirement accounts that you can set up. There's certain, self-directed IRAs that you can set up to funnel some of that money for retirement, but the government allows you. So there's all these things that will help you in your business, help you in your retirement. And, they're provided by the government as quote unquote loopholes and whatnot. So
100%. And actually, I'm going to make one point. But if you guys find something that your CPA does not know about, it doesn't mean that it's not true. Ask your CPA to look into it. All right. So the tax code is like this big and it changes every year. I mean, not all CPAs, they all have the same designation, but not all are created equal. Like I said, that year I had a CPA, I still paid 60 grand in taxes. And when I went back and looked at it later, I was like, wow, I could have done this, and this, but was not advised on how to do it. And therefore I ended up with a huge tax burden. Just because they don't know doesn't mean it's not real.
Yep.
Feel empowered to go educate yourself and educate your CPA and have them help guide you through that process. So
absolutely.
With that, to start it off, I know we've got like 5 main things that we want to hit today. Thousands. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah. And I have a bonus one that I kind of wanted to put out there too, Kaila. I know we sent out, or we had texted about the outline and whatnot. But one of the things I wanted to kind of point out, and one of the strategies I'm going to be using is, I think next year is going to be slower just with some stuff going on. Like our transaction count might be down and whatnot, and it's going to be a little bit tougher. So what I'm looking to do is pay for as many expenses right now for this year, because I had a good year, than putting it into next year. So buying the new lead gen and whatnot this year, paying for that and moving it into, that way I'm not paying for it next year. I can write it off this year. So does that make sense?
I love that. Yeah. I have actually done that before. I did that last year with a mastermind course. It was quite expensive, and it was, you know what? I'm going to have a pretty high tax burden this year. So let me make my expenses a little bit higher, even though I'm going to use it in 2022. I paid for it in 2021 to go ahead and reduce my tax burden.
Exactly. And Kaila and I are going to teach each other some stuff here too. So the first thing that we have is the Augusta rule. Can you talk about that a little bit, what that is?
I love the Augusta rule. And I'm writing this down here, you guys, in our little chat box. So the Augusta rule actually goes back to Augusta, Georgia. That's actually where it started. So in Augusta, Georgia, they have the masters that comes through, consistently. And what people were doing was they were renting out their homes for that week or weekend for the championship. I'm not a golfer, so obviously you're going to figure this out in my lingo. But basically for this event, there's thousands of people that come from everywhere. There's not as many hotels, but there's also rather wealthy individuals that want to rent houses out. So people were renting out their homes. So this was years and years ago, you guys. So they were renting their homes out. And the challenge was they were being hit with a weird tax burden, whereby they weren't technically hotel owners, but they were making a profit on their homes. And what ended up happening was they said, well, we've got to build something around this because that doesn't make much sense. Like, these people aren't running it as a business. It's 1 week or 1 weekend out of the year. We got to make a little bit of leeway here. So what they did was they made it legal for people to rent their property, their home, for up to 14 times, so 14 days out of the year, and charge someone and not be taxed on the income received because they were seeing it as more of a private income. Well, the cool thing is when this got put into place, what it allowed was for individuals like us who are business owners to go ahead and utilize that. So let me show you how this works. You guys are going to have to, and I highly recommend, even if it's just you don't have an assistant, I don't care. You are going to sit down at least once a month, review the books, take a look at what's going on, review your goals, have some think time, which we'll talk about think time at another time. But you're going to sit down and really process your business at least once a month. And I'm sure some of you are sitting there going, I do that every day. Yes. Well, at least once a month, that's going to be on your calendar. Okay. You take meeting minutes and all that. Now, mind you, if you could do this sitting in a coffee shop, right? Or if you're a business owner, you might want to do it the right way, right? You want to go to the Hilton, you're going to rent out a room, you're going to rent out a projector and a microphone, you're going to get breakfast and lunch, you're going to get all of these things, which, by the way, if no one's ever rented one of these places out, it's freaking expensive, right? It could be sometimes $1,400 just for the day for those things. This would be how much you as a business owner would have to spend in order to go get an offsite location for you to hold your monthly reviews of your business. Now, here's what's fun. In lieu of you going to the Hilton, what if your team, business, etc., rented your house out for the day instead? At the same price. So that's what the Augusta rule allows you to do. So my team is called the True Lane Group. So the True Lane Group rents out my house. By the way, we don't actually have to go to my house. I'm going to put that out there. We just at least have to actually meet. But we can go to my house and rent my house out that many times a year. And I get paid that $1,250, which is the amount that I have deemed, reasonable for my region. I get paid $1,250 from the True Lane Group. It is a tax write-off, direct 100% tax write-off on my company. And me as an individual, I receive that and I am not taxed on that income received.
Nice.
So you can save thousands just by applying that. And by the way, you don't have to have like a startup date or when you're going to begin it. You guys can start that like tomorrow. Tomorrow, you can say, okay, today's my business planning day. I'm going to get, 4 or 5 business planning days in before the end of the year and transfer that wealth into my income versus giving it to the government. Again, that's the whole idea is, could you use it better than the government can? Could you apply that back to your business in some way? Or I don't know, maybe take a spa day. Like, come on, you could do a lot of things with $1,200 to $1,400. So that has been, it's not big dollars and cents, but every penny counts when you're in business because you can put that into more income producing activities. So any way you can do that, it's going to be helpful.
And one of the things I was thinking about is as we go into the new year as well, is like, why not use your house to host your team meeting for business planning and whatnot for 2023?
Exactly.
I think that's a great idea because I would definitely host at my house. I got a good place for that. So I'm going to actually talk to my accountant about this and see what we can do. Yeah, I'm going to talk to him, send him an email today.
We keep it really simple. So if for those of you guys that are kind of curious about like, well, how do you transfer the money? What does that look like? What I basically just do is I go into my bank account and I have it scheduled to transfer out of my business banking as a monthly wire into my personal checking account. And it's at a specific dollar amount of $1,250 because that's the amount that will trigger for my bookkeeper to say, oh, that $1,250 transfer to Kaila directly is her monthly. So they know that that's the amount. So we kind of preset that so they don't have to come to me every month and go, what's this $1,250 again? They've got it noted in the notes for me. That's my Augusta deposit. And they know that. So it makes it a lot easier. So I don't have to call them every time like, hey, I made the transfer. Make sure you note it. They already know. But when I made it automated, it made it easier. And I do have consistent, honestly, weekly operations meetings. But we have one longer meeting once a month anyway. So we'd allow it to go to that. Side note, you need to take meeting minutes. In case you guys didn't know this, they've hired many IRS peoples over the last little while. And the whole idea is for them to come knocking at your door. Yes, they are not meant to just sit there eating bonbons. They want to come get you. So what do? We stick within the law. This is the law, but you do have to keep good records. So very simply, keep some meeting minutes of the day that you did it, what you thought about, what you wrote down. It's very easy. You can even, by the way, you can do it all auditory and send it into a VA for a few dollars and have them transcribe it into notes. This way, if you don't want to sit there typing the whole time, that's fine. There's easy ways to get around that. So you have evidence that you actually did meet. It'd be very
Share
rare.
that website real quick. Share that website, Revo.
Yes, rev.com, rev.com. I think it's like $1.50 a minute or something. I think like I'll do 5-minute videos that I'll get transcribed. If you guys have ever seen some of our videos that are on this page, they all get transcribed by Rev, and I think I pay like $7. So
Yeah.
they could do a whole day of transcription if you wanted to, or you just go ahead and write it all down and take a picture. Handwritten notes are totally fine. It's just as long as you can find them and easily send them in. That's all it is. But don't be scared of it. You're not going to get in trouble for using, because that's what it's there for. It's there to be used. So that's what we're teaching you guys.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest points that you made as well is make it automated, right? Because if it's automated, then your accountant's automatically going to know what that is. You're going to know what that is. And you're not rushing to do catch up for the rest of the year, which is kind of what I'm thinking. Man, I really need to catch up for the rest of the year and use the Augusta rule after I talk to my accountant. So,
yep.
So
and hey, do 2 meetings each month until the end of the year. You won't take advantage of all of it, but you'll get a couple knocked out. And let's face it, end of the year, raise of hands, who feels like they need to dive a little deeper and do some extra planning? I know I do.
I do.
So it can be easy to eat up some of that, which is nice.
Nice. That's huge.
Yeah. Heck yeah. All right. So numero dos on the list here. Do you want to, and we don't have to go in order with what we talked about if you want to jump in on one of them, by the way.
I think one of the ones I want to talk about real quick is set yourself as an LLC, not a sole prop, right? Yes. And I think that's important because if you haven't done that, you want to do that as soon as possible. So, because I think if I'm correct, and you can help me out with this, Kaila, but when you set up your LLC is when that tax advantage starts. You can't retroactive that to the beginning of the year, right?
So I will say this, it's a yes and no. So if right now, this is actually how I did it my very first year in real estate, because I had no idea about any of this. I had a really great year. We're coming up on December, and I just learned about this, and I'm going, oh shit. So I basically went ahead and I retroactively created it. So I created the LLC within that same year. But then which by the way, my finances were a mess, you guys. So if your finances are a mess, it's okay. So are mine. I was putting all of my business money into my personal bank account, which by the way, that's how you pay 50% in taxes, just in case you didn't know that. So what I ended up doing was I spoke with a CPA. They said, just take as much of a chunk out of your personal account as possible, stick it in your business account. That will show that you've gotten that set up. And that will basically, it allowed me to retroactively for that year, go ahead and get it set up. Now, the piece of this though, which I know you know this, the caveat is I also had to get set up as an employee of my company in order for any of this to work. In order for any of it to work, I had to be an employee. You guys might be thinking that sounds like a lot of work. It's not. Once you get your LLC, you go to the least expensive check processing company in town. ADP is a good one. Paychecks, I don't know if they're in your guys' areas, but I know they're here. Go to them and just say, look, guys, send me a check for a salary of $35,000 or $45,000 a year. You send that out of my business account every other week or monthly or however you want to set it up. Once you've established that you are an employee with a W-2 with your company, now it all makes sense, because now the IRS doesn't see it as your personal piggy bank, even if it's a business account, that you're not pulling at it just for personal items, which yes, you can pull money out whenever you want, but they have to see that you've established that you're an employee. So that's like the 2 key pieces: be an LLC, taxed as an S Corp. I'll write that in too. And make sure you're an employee of that company. Those are the 2 biggest pieces of that.
And I think the other thing that's important also, and let me know what you think about this, is having your spouse be an owner on that LLC as well, because then you have double the tax advantages. I mean, that's how we set up my wife's retirement account, which we can kind of get into a little bit as well.
You can, I was going to say, you can do that. There's also, depends upon if your spouse has another business. So this is kind of cool, by the way, and I'll give you guys a little insight into what we did. So my husband owns and runs a flipping company. He's a general contractor. So what we did is the True Lane Group, my company, owns outright his company. So I own his company, or my company owns his company. The reason for this is if I have a good year and he has a bad year, we can offset each other's taxes. If he has a bad year, we can offset the taxes. So we ended up doing that last year because it was a startup year. Startup years are usually kind of tough. So we were able to offset a bunch of our taxes and reduced our tax burden down to almost nothing. So there's a few different ways to set it up. It depends upon where you're at. You know, if your spouse doesn't have a business, get them as an employee and go ahead and do it that way. If they do, it might be advantageous to stack them, so you can both play off of each other's tax burdens.
Talk to your accountant and they'll kind of go play by play with this. I think with all this being said, I think you should have a monthly meeting with your accountant as well, just to look at everything, make sure you're good to go, see if there's anything new that pops up. If you are going to masterminds and classes and there's different ideas, like bring that up during those monthly meetings with your accountant. The other thing I would advise is become really good friends or really close with your accountant's assistant as well, because accountants get busy just like we do, right? So I think if you can leverage that other person that works side by side with them, you're going to get a lot of your answers a little bit quicker. And, just building a relationship with two people rather than one is really good.
So true. So true. So now, question for you, James. This is number 3. How much of a percentage, or should I say this, how many meals are write-offs? How many food meals are write-offs?
Oh man, as of last year, it was 100%. Is it still 100%?
So it's really cool. So I always say every meal that we eat out is a write-off. The reason I say that, back in the day, they used to look more into, okay, where were you eating? Were you meeting with somebody, etc.? And in 2020, they did away, the beginning of the year, people were up in arms. They did away with meals and entertainment. They were not write-offs in any sense at all whatsoever. And even the major corporations were up in arms about it, because we do host a lot of events. And I say we, agents, any other business over corporations, where we take people out to eat, we wine and dine them. But I think they just wanted to cut down on the amount of strippers. So, they decided to get rid of that. So you can't do entertainment. But meals. So basically what they say is, whether you're on a date with your spouse or you're out with a buyer, they don't care. They're not looking at it. They're going to look at, you had 100 meals at, let's say, I'm making very round numbers. You spend $1,000 on meals in 2023. We'll give you a deduction of $500.
Okay.
Whatever it is, it's cut right in half. They're like, all right, whatever. This is how much you get.
Does that include like going to Starbucks? And it's important too, because one of the reasons that they're doing that is to incentivize you to go out and spend money. And sorry,
I was gonna say. So I know we talked about like CPAs, right? And I think one of the biggest reasons people don't get a CPA is why. I know you guys are thinking this, like, yeah, but a CPA is going to cost me thousands and a bookkeeper is going to cost me thousands. Quick question, drop in the chat box. When was the last time you did a P&L statement?
Yeah.
Other question, who knows what a P&L statement is? Drop it in the chat box. These give me straight up anxiety. Like, me and Ryan sit down to review finances. You'd think that I'd be like excited about that. I'm not at all. Like, we sit down and I'm like already breaking out into a cold sweat. It's just, I don't like talking finances. It gives me anxiety. So a P&L statement is a profit and loss. I know I've been doing this, you do them, but it takes time and it takes a little bit of focus. So what do you need to do? What do we do as professionals? What do we expect our clients to do? Hire,
hire professional. And it's really not that expensive. I mean, with everything I have going on, it's probably like $3,000-$4,000 a year, but she's really available to me. Questions with, via text or email or whatnot. I mean, sometimes there's times it's hard to get a hold of her, but for the most part, she's there, right? So business changing for myself for having that CPA. I remember the first year I did my taxes, I didn't hire a CPA. I went to AARP which is a free resource for taxes because one of my friends runs it, right? And she's like, hey, you're getting to a point where this is just going to be way too complicated once you really get into this. So I had to go find the right CPA. I would recommend you interview 3 or 4 of the CPAs, see which one that you feel really comfortable. Ask your colleagues who they feel comfortable and get somebody that's really good at real estate taxes. Because there's going to be people in your town, just like in my town, that work with a lot of real estate agents. And if they're working with a lot of real estate agents, they're having those conversations over and over. And when they're having those conversations over and over again, they're going to come up with new good ideas rather than somebody that's just working on, somebody that's not in real estate.
I love that. Yeah. Someone who specifically does real estate, CPA or accounting work. I think that's a great idea because they, like you just said, they might have a conversation with me and then they're talking to you next. And they're like, hey, I was actually having this conversation. I think this might help you. Because again, not everybody's going to be 100% well-read on the tax code. There's always going to be opportunity for you to even just get creative, right? It might be, well, I'm not set up for that right now, but if I tweak this in my business, I could do that. So you being as educated as your CPA, and that's probably not going to happen. We're not expecting to put numbers together, but you understanding how it affects your business is going to help you save a ton of money. So that's the big thing. And it is 100% write-off on your taxes to hire a CPA. That's right. Your CPA and your bookkeeper, you can write those fees off 100%. So question, would you trade $3,000 for $60,000?
Absolutely. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
That's a good investment.
I was doing my bookkeeping on Sundays for 4 of my first years in real estate, 4 or 5 years. And finally, my accountant's like, why are you doing that? Like, enjoy your Sundays with your kids. I'm like, well, I wake up early. She's like, yeah, go work out, go hike, go do something. I'll take this over for $100 a month. I was like, cool. Yeah, that works for me, So it's well worth it for sure.
I was gonna say, when you get the right person, and I think we've talked about this briefly, or maybe I've done it in other coaching sessions, but figure out what your hourly rate is. We're going to talk about leverage coming up in the next few weeks, but figure out what your hourly rate is. And if what you can get someone else to do it for you, if that's less expensive than your hourly rate, do it. I don't care if your hourly rate is you at the gym, like you just said, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It's how you're using your time. So you can either get healthy, spend time with family. I think we've both done it where we've run ourselves into the ground wanting to be the end all be all of everything. And we look back, we're like, okay, I made a lot of money. That's cool. But what did I do this year? Did I travel? Did I enjoy? Did I go to birthday parties? And it's not worth it. Leverage, yes, you're going to pay money. I grew up in an Irish family where we do everything ourselves. If you need to make the fabric, you can figure it out, right? That's how I was raised, where now I have that business mindset, which took a long time. Whereas you're giving a job to someone else who also needs it. So think of it that way too, if you really want to, but someone else can do that better than you. I promise you.
Absolutely. And if you get audited, they're the ones that are going to go, you're going to have to work with them, but they're going to help you and taking care of a lot of that stuff. And you want to be as organized as possible. And this is my advice that I give to everybody, including myself over and over again, is don't be too aggressive on your taxes. Just if there's one thing I worry about in my business, it's being audited, right? So I want to make sure I try to be as organized as possible and not overly aggressive, but I'm going to take advantage of the stuff that's there and the stuff that she says I can do.
There's a lot of gray area in the tax code, and that's where most businesses live, is in that gray area. One side, that's you're taking too much advantage and trying to really skirt it. But the way myself and my CPA see it is it a part of your brand? So this gets to number 5. So anybody that knows me, that's followed me for any period of time, they know I like certain things. I like dogs. I like beer. Obviously not right now, but I like dogs. I like beer. I like surfing, art, and real estate. Like, those are my things. The interesting part about that is that means that those things become write-offs. Why? Because they're a part of my consistent marketing. So my dog's vet bills, they're write-offs. And the reason being is it's because of who I am. I don't just say, hey, everything in my life is a write-off because I'm on TV. It's not that. It's what are the things that define me and my brand of who I am as Kaila Lindsey, realtor? It's those things. Now, the other thing to keep in mind are what are the things you pay for every day that you could potentially write off? One, house cleaning. I entertain at my house all the time. House cleaning and landscaping are 2 things that I do write off on my taxes because I'm using my home as a launch pad to meet with people. If I didn't have those things, I would have to do them myself. And if I had to do them myself, I would have less time to build my business. So look into that. double check your phone. Your phone is a business expense. If you have not already set it up on a business line, you might be saying, yeah, it's an extra $20 a month to do business. It's okay, because now you can write your phone off, right?
Yep.
So take an itinerary, or not an itinerary, inventory of where you're spending all your money monthly, and figure out which ones of those items, like, no, your mortgage is not a write-off. That's why we have the Augusta rule. No, your electricity is not a write-off. That's, you live in the home, right? Like, things like that don't make sense. But go through and see, like, what are these things that are affecting me from a business standpoint that I can do that. So when you're going through that, just start looking at it.
Yeah. So I know we're a little over 30 minutes. I wanted to throw some stuff out there real quick for people to think about, is the type of 401k that you want to set up. So talk to your accountant about that. The other thing I would do to tie into that is read the Simple Book to Wealth by J.L. Collins. Have you ever read that book, Kaila?
I haven't, actually.
Oh, that's a really, really good one. It goes into, index funds and just, anyways, read it, watch his podcast. He's on bigger podcasts as well, with an episode that I thought was amazing. Also, hearing for your state taxes, there's a certain amount that you can write off every year that you can just, instead of paying taxes directly to the state, you can pay it to a nonprofit or whatnot. So like I did the Launchpad, I do the child birthing centers, and what pay a single mom's kids tuition for their school. Yeah, there's all kinds of things. So instead of those taxes going to the state, where those taxes are going to up to a certain amount.
I will say I'm not as well rounded on what's going on locally here, but I do know very similarly in North Carolina, as with most parts of the country, giving to charity. If you're already going to give, right? Like, I'm never going to say go give to save taxes. If you have it in your heart that you want to give something, yes, you can write that off. I give to Halfway There, Rescue, things of that nature. Give where you want to. But the other thing to keep in mind is, what do you want to be involved in? This can be something you can really dive deep on, which could be really fun, and do more with those organizations, which is really cool.
Yeah. One of the things I recently did is I gave a good amount of money to one of the soccer organizations here to pay for underprivileged kids so that they could play sports. Because my mom, when I was a kid, we had to return some of my toys because it was either, she said, hey, I overspent. You can either play soccer or you can keep your toys that I bought. And I said I would rather play soccer. So I had to choose that. And I'm hoping to set up a bigger scholarship fund for that. And I always donate to them every year to help underprivileged families get their kids into sports so that they're not having to make that choice like I had to.
I've had some similar things where I was like, well, we really just can't, and it was something that I really wanted to do. Side note, I hated soccer. I would pray that it would rain every day we had practice because I did not want to go. So this, by the way, guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And actually, James and I are working on putting together an entire program that is centered and focused around putting your business together as an actual business, because so many don't actually know. I'm amazed. There's a colleague that I have, and she's like, oh my gosh, did you hear about this thing called the Augusta rule? And I'm sitting there going, I've been working with that for like 5 years, and she does a phenomenal business, and she had no idea. So it opened my eyes to say, a lot of you guys are kicking butt in real estate, but we've never been taught how to run. And we're expected to be the CFO, the CEO, the COO, right? We're the sales team, we're all of the things. We need to know this because we need to learn how to make the money. So I hope this was helpful for you guys.
Oh, that's great. I took a few notes. That's what I was doing, writing down some stuff. And I'm going to send an email to my accountant after I get off It's been great, Kaila. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. And thanks to you guys that are joining us. So we have a few people on. Be sure to apply this. That's the biggest thing I could tell anybody. Like James just said it. There's some things I wasn't sure of, and I'm going to go look at this. And James had given me some stuff with regards to the 401k. I promise you can't mess it up. Just go take action.
It's not what you make, it's what you keep, and goals out there, and advantages for being a business owner. So take advantage of that.
I love it. Well, happy Coffee Monday, and you guys go out there and get some contracts.